Happy Monday. So today we're going to go into what I call the dream client pyramid. And we're going to talk a little bit about it, but we're not going to cover the whole pyramid because it's a lot to cover at once. You know who your dream client is, or at this point, you at least have an idea. It's okay if it's not fully fleshed out. It may not ever feel like it is fully fleshed out. And I think you'll understand why you're feeling that way once we talk about what we're talking about today. This is something I started playing around with when I was working with my own, my own dream clients and thinking about who they were and looking at how, traditional marketing handles that and realizing that it didn't quite work. And, having that weird mesh up between like, this is what I've been taught from, years of marketing experience. This is what everybody else is doing. But there was still that like, well, something doesn't work. So why doesn't it? And I will say, if you have like only one thing that you're selling, the old way might be enough to work, but it still won't have the full picture. And for me, I started realizing, the old way of just understanding like, oh, this is what we're looking at our dream client. And then, we just think about their pain points. That didn't really work because it was the question of, well, why do I have different levels of program then if they're all the same client? Like, what is that? And there had to be something more than just, well, you can make a different client, persona or, dream client profile or ideal client for them. And it was how can we look at, the ways of all of the ways of working with you and understanding where that person is both in their business or however you're working with them, where they are energetically and all of the things in between. And I finally came down to the old traditional ways really explains the logic behind who your client is, but not their energy. And their energy is, the most important part because it connects us to them. And it also helps us understand pieces that logic may not explain. The energy helps us read the situation and know, what are they going to feel safe with? What are they not going to feel safe with? And make sure that we're facilitating and leading rather than just, talking to a profile. And I will say, if you're not entirely sure on your dream client profile or dream client information, whatever you want to call it, there's a bazillion different words. That's okay. Some people find that understanding this actually clears it up more. You may want to return to that once you've explored this. It's entirely okay. I like using what's been done previously as the foundation, and this builds off of it. Your brain might need to process it differently. That's okay too. Honor your learning style. Honor how your brain wants to process it. Like, we're cool with this. And if you're still like, what are we talking about? I'm thinking of, so often we only speak to one level of clients, in our post or even in our offers. And if we have different offers, then we can kind of, there's this confusion of who am I speaking to with this and who am I speaking to with that? And it's that like, well, I really want to attract, your VIP clients or whatever you call them, but yet you only keep attracting, lower level or, clients who can't afford past a particular amount. Or, if you're just getting started, it may even be you're only attracting people who can't afford you. And this will help explain some of that. So what I discovered is what I call the client pyramid, or the dream client pyramid, whichever you want to handle it. And to me, it is like the way of looking at the same general soulmate client, but they have different energetic frequencies or levels or variations. And so it's, same type of client, same information that you may have thought of, but they're on different frequencies. So it's like their lowest frequency, their mid frequency, and their highest frequency. And I will admit, at first, I totally just thought of this as a low and a high. And I was looking at it like, okay, well, this is the energy of this client, but they have the low, which is their shadow side, and it's not fully evolved into the high yet. And they're not in a place where they might be able to fully receive support or receive what they're doing, while the high was, the person who on paper was my soulmate client, my dream client, and that person who was ready to do the work, to dive in, to commit, to spend money. And it was just about getting them to a place where they could understand what they need and trust. But I realized it wasn't that simple. And it also, that was a little bit, I wouldn't say demeaning, but it was a little bit more judgmental. And it's, there's the 3 energetic levels, and it's okay wherever they are, entirely okay. And any level can still have shadow traits. We all have them. So they're going to have them. And that could be the exact thing that they're coming to you for. Each level is likely to have their own, fears or weaknesses that may play out. And knowing that can help you accommodate them so that you can lead people through them. So instead of just a high or a low, it is 3 tiers of the pyramid: the groundwork, the core, and the crown. Today, we're going to be talking about the groundwork because, just as it sounds, it's the bottom of the pyramid. We can't build anything without focusing on the bottom of the pyramid first. Technically, I suppose, if you really wanted, you could try to do it in reverse, but I like for things to be energetic sounds, and it's easier to build from the bottom up. If you get called a different way, sure. But today we're talking about groundwork. So the bottom of the pyramid, groundwork clients. And we'll talk about who they are first. So these are clients, they know what their big problem is, the big problem, but they don't know what the problem is right now. And so they have an idea of, this is the thing I want to get to, but they don't know what is the thing that needs to shift so they can get there. And one example would be, okay, I want to make money. Okay, great. But it's what is the thing in between that's going to help create that shift? And that's where they're stuck. And it's likely they could be going down all sorts of different routes and just throwing things, together, trying to see what works. Problem is, if you're just doing lots of things, how do you know which one's working and which one's not? So that's likely where they are. This level, not going to be super ready to dive into your highest package, most likely, depending on how you've set things up. But it's okay because you don't necessarily want them there anyway. Their energy may not be ready for it, and you want to make sure that you're supporting what their energy is ready for. It's not just about what their bank account can afford. And that might be radical, but it's truth. So it's really about feeling them out, making sure that you're protecting your own energy. You're probably going to need more boundaries with these clients. And note, again, there is nothing wrong with where they are. They are exactly where they're supposed to be. It doesn't mean they're in a bad place or that they are bad people. They're just at the beginning of their journey. We all have to be at the beginning of our journey at some point. We want to make sure there isn't any judgment with this. And it's with growth. So growth is what takes them to the higher vibrational state and the higher growth state of the next tiers up of the core and of the crown. It's fine. We all have to grow. I will say there may be particular shadow traits in the groundwork where people get stuck in. There may be a particular fear or a pattern that you need to move them through or that they need to become aware of. And you will likely find that it's a common thing with your groundwork clients. It might be that they need more structure or that they have past life stuff that they need to get through or that they have a particular money belief that they need to work through. You'll likely notice a pattern, and chances are that's going to be something you're going to want to address either in a freebie or an offer. Freebie would be great, or a low priced offer would be great for that, because then it gets them in the doorway and it started making them feel safe and trusted and seen by you. So if you needed an invitation, there's one. Okay, so with groundwork clients, you do need to sell to them a little differently. It needs to be a little bit more personal, or I don't want to say necessarily say hands-on, but it does need to be very like intimate and speak to them. They may need some coaching in the sales process. If that feels good to you, go ahead and along with it. They may also just need to be understood that they're seen. And that could be being called out. That could just be making sure that they feel recognized, that they feel heard and understood. But they need to know, like, okay, there's a reason why I can trust this person, and they understand who I am and where I am, and they can actually move me forward. That is the biggest piece. Show them that you understand exactly what they're struggling with, the problems that they're going through, and then show them that we can have something better. If there's nothing else you get out of this video, that is the most important thing. Knowing this in this process, especially in the sales process, again, some of those fears may come up, especially around like root chakra. They may not, even like solar chakra too. They may not believe in themselves. There may be like the money security fears. We don't need to play into them, but just be aware that they could be there, and that there might be a way to work it into your process of, or your flow of how you work with them so that everything gets smoothed out easily. I like to make sure that these clients feel really seen and that, again, they feel understood. So even in a sales page, it can be, here's where I've been. I know what it's like. Here's how I moved out of it. Hearing those stories from you. They may even need to hear you, very plainly, why do you believe in them? Why do you believe that they can change? They may need that spelled out to them. And again, depending on your business model, that may work. You may have to do generals. Okay, so groundwork clients need different things than other clients in their offers. That makes sense, right? So for me, what I've noticed is groundwork clients may need things that are a bit shorter and more easily implemented. They definitely need action steps. I would say things like meditations, challenges, checklists. Action steps are going to be kind of the big key here, actually. So whether it's in your marketing and your sales or in how you work together, what do they need to do next? Like, how can you keep giving them that little, like, here's what you do? And I don't know what this motion is that I'm doing, but maybe you'll figure it out. But it's that, how can you direct them to what they have to do next? How can you keep them accountable for it? That's what's really going to keep them moving forward. And they may want to skip steps because they want to rush things. They want to have results. If they're generators and managens, this is going to be more likely. I will say, even though if they're projectors who are just becoming aware of their design, they may still fall into this because they're used to acting like everyone else. So job is to keep them on focus, taking small steps, giving them lots of structure. To me, it's the further down a client is on the pyramid, the more structure they need to feel safe, to feel secure, and to really understand how are they getting a difference? Like, what's going to transform? If it's too loose, they're not going to feel like any change is happening, even if it is. And we want that structure to give them the boundaries and to give them those check-ins of something's happening here. You can believe it. You can believe in yourself. Let's move forward. I will say, in marketing in like launch mode, things that work really well for this level is, something that's like spaced out. So like a challenge, or, like like a 3-day or a 5-day mini course where they get a small little thing a day, something that they can do and implement immediately and get some small result. Works really well because then they can trust their process. They can trust how they absorb information from you, how they get results from you, and then they can move forward. It also creates that momentum that they need to get unstuck and wherever they need to get unstuck. Just a little energetic push there without you having to be the one holding the energetic push, because that gets exhausting and we're going to stop doing that. Okay. So again, that's an invitation if you need one. So what if you don't know what level your client is at or what level a potential client is at? Are they a groundwork client? Are they something else? For me, I like to take just a few moments and close my eyes and try to tap in. Either you can do it in the quantum space in the heart field if you want. You can also just, take a moment and ask to see their higher self and see how connected you can get to that. And then also see how connected are they to their higher self. And chances are, if they're crowned, they're going to be super duper connected. This isn't going to work necessarily for everybody, but it's how connected are they? Is there a cord? How long is it? What color is it? Are there any other details? Are there things that they want to tell you? And, it's going to be different each time, but sometimes people will be really close to their higher self. Sometimes they'll be really freaking far away. You may also see blocks. I've seen things like tumbleweeds or what is the word I'm looking for? Like almost like Sleeping Beauty when they're like cutting down all the, I guess it's vines, thorns. I don't remember what it actually was in the story, but I think it was thorns. But, like just seeing this mass of things growing in the way. You may see like a literal wall or block, like concrete block. But just know that it's not your job to clear that barrier or clear that block. They're not paying for it. You don't need to be doing the healing work. You just need to be aware that they're there so you can understand where they need support and what type of support they need. You may also be able to look at their body and see, are there parts that feel heavier or are there areas that are lighter on them? That may give you some indication. If you're working with them in their business, you can see how connected they are to their business. That'll likely tell you something. And for me, there tends to be a color change. And these are my own colors, so it may not be the same for you. But I find that the thing that I can tend to look for the most is looking at someone's solar plexus. And so if their solar plexus is really dark and dusty and dingy, they don't have any power to amplify, and they may not be tapped into the core of them. And having a business is self-growth, and nobody tells you this when you're signing up for it. But that's usually my key. Okay, they're likely groundwork because they don't have the energy to sustain or to receive anything. There's no way that they can amplify, which, if you're not tapped into yourself and you have no energy to amplify, you can't really get results. So that could be something you look for. You may notice that, a groundwork client tends to be heavier or have a darker color. There's nothing wrong with this. These are just how your brain chooses to perceive it. But you may notice it. For you, it may be a different chakra that pops up. But see what information tends to appear when you're doing this, and just notice the patterns and figure out what works for you. Okay, so there's always going to be a little bit of overlaps. We're going to talk a little bit about this. But essentially, working with groundwork clients is, in order to do this, first you have to understand that every level of the pyramid has their own fears. So it's what fears are going to be present for the groundwork clients. What are those shadow traits? What are those common patterns? And you may notice it just by looking at the type of energy you feel from your audience or from, a particular offer of clients. Things that I know groundwork clients usually tend to talk about the past. There's still a story being played out. And, this is what I did. And, I've done all this and it's not working. And often it needs to be a slower paced process with them. It needs so much more structure because you need to be able to shift them out of the frequency of whatever story they're in into the new frequency. Bazillion different ways to do this. It doesn't have to be all energy work, but we have to just be aware of that. For me, it's also with the fear part. I'm not going to talk to a groundwork client about growing their business to 6 figures because holy shit, that's going to create so much fear and so much block that they won't be able to move forward because their energy can't support that big of a change. It's, they could bounce into it potentially, but they're not going to be able to sustain it. Their body is going to bounce back into what felt safe because it doesn't know how to sustain that energy. Instead, it's finding the place in the middle that's still a little bit of a stretch for them, but is something that will feel safe to sustain. You may have to experiment with people to see what is that, but understanding that. I like to understand and even tell them, these are the things that may be blocks or hindrances for you, and here's how what we're doing clears those for you. So that they have the idea of like, oh, yeah, I can recognize that's where I'm stuck. And now I can see how we're going to move past it so that it opens up space and energy for them to actually do the work and move forward. Because otherwise there's this subconscious thing again of that, like, well, I've done all this stuff before. I've done lots of stuff and nothing's worked. Or, I just don't know if it'll work for me. And this bypasses all of that. They may even need you to paint the picture of, where are they? And what is the process going to look like for taking them out of it? And if they followed you for a while, they may already have trust, and that may not be as necessary, but it might be, okay, say they have this block around receiving, and it could be, you follow the story back, and it's they grew up in a home, parents never had enough money, they constantly heard it, like, didn't money, don't you think money grows on trees, blah, 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 all those stories. And then so you're like, okay, so we understand your block. These are the things we're going to do to move past it. We'll do journaling and rituals and quantum work and mindset work and these specific actions daily, and just giving them that clarity so that you can, eliminate any overwhelm that's coming to their root chakra, can help them feel supported and give them the foundation so that they can take the next step up. For groundwork clients, in some ways, like, our businesses are their foundation because we're that energetic support. Also why it's important to make sure our energy is supported and our business's energy is supported, but that's a side tangent. And it's also like these things play out in really like every way we contact clients, and we don't necessarily think about it all the time. So yeah, it's in like how we construct offers, how we do our marketing, how we work with them, and it's understanding the process. So like groundwork clients, we need to think about how are we presenting our offers and our packages, whatever, to them. So if you're in something that's like service-based, your groundwork clients are likely going to go to like a group program or self-study. If it's a product, they're likely going to start with the basic product because they want to be sure that they can understand it and use it before making the full investment. And it makes sense. I like to, it's like, I think y'all know by now, I use like a list, and in fact, I have a list here. I use like a list and vision boards and whiteboards for everything, but having the list for like each of my programs of what are the traits that people coming into this have, both the positive and any shadow aspects. And it could be, okay, so maybe they're not completely secure in their gifts and in their power, regardless of how long they've been doing this or how great they are at it. They just don't feel fully confident. And, I may notice that they tend to talk a lot and they need more one-on-one support, or they need more time, or they need, another way to help them process if there's not a lot of access to me. It might be that there's even like specific astrological signs that show up for, well, there was for me. And then I could look at, well, what are, the shadow aspects of this, as well as, which are the, the positive aspects that are commonalities that I can speak to. You may notice particular human design types, or for me, it's usually like open centers. Like, it's interesting, but there are programs where I tend to notice that I get the same types. And it might be that I get an abnormal amount of projectors, or it might be that, spellbinding sales is often a lot of projectors and generators, which is really interesting to me. You just may notice that. And this is for all packages, but once you can have the idea and like have the patterns, then you can better understand where to place them. And by what we've listened to, it's like, okay, so I'm noticing these patterns for these types of clients, and they tend to go to my smallest offer. They're probably Groundwork. And then you can look for like these. So like, maybe your projectors come into something in the middle. Maybe they come into Crown, just like understanding what is that process and how they need to be communicated with. And so like for me, it's the knowing. So like I have the patterns, I'm aware of the patterns, and I can recognize, like, if I think somebody's coming into a Groundwork offer, I either need to have it, typically I have them priced so low that it doesn't matter, like I don't need to get on the call with you, but otherwise it's a Groundwork clients typically need calls with me. Higher levels like core and Crown, typically we could do just like a Voxer message or a Facebook message, and it doesn't have to be like my energy fully directed onto them. But so the Groundwork clients tend to need, that step-by-step going through the process to feel secure. That's just the pattern. So in this, it's the, recognizing your own patterns of what you've experienced. And even on the other side of things, what makes you feel supported, and understanding how to weave those pieces in. Okay, so in our homework, we're going to be working on getting clear on our Groundwork clients. If you have things coming up for what you think are the other tiers, you can just like jot it down at the bottom and store it, and we'll sort it out in we'll sort it out in our following time together. I'm not going to say a specific time, but yay! So I'm excited to hear what ahas you have, what questions you have, all the things. Y'all know I like hearing all the things. Okay, bye!